Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 21st of December, 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, just a quick shout out here. I recorded a new bull case for Ethereum podcast with the Bankless crew and Cyrus Yunesi and DC Investor here. So this is episode 3 of the bull case for Ethereum. Obviously, we talked about a lot of bullish things got to do with Ethereum. I'm sure many of you have listened to this already. But, the funny thing is, while I was going through and recording this kind of podcast with these guys, we kind of went back and looked at how ETH as an asset has evolved, right, over the years. And we spoke about the 3 core pillars of ETH value accrual, and that's something that I've spoken about for a long time now. And we only had really one of those pillars for a long time. So the 3 pillars are ETH's kind of use as trustless collateral within DeFi or beyond DeFi, right? Just ETH's use as trustless collateral in general. You had staking, and you had transaction fees / ERP-1559 with transaction fee burning. Now, for the longest time, we didn't have staking, we didn't have 1559. I've talked about these pillars since pretty much early 2019. So for almost 2 years, we didn't have staking. And then for, over 2.5 years, we didn't have 1559. So really, a lot of ETH's value accrual kind of through 2020 and some of 2021 had a lot to do with Ethereum executing on its roadmap and ETH accruing value because of those roadmap items that have been executed on. And so far, everything's gone to plan. The next big milestone is the merge, of course, and then a few other things after that. But I think that given that the merge is such a large kind of milestone for the Ethereum network, but on top of that, there's a massive issuance reduction as well, I struggle to see ETH kind of not being much higher than what it is today. Maybe not. So maybe much higher is the wrong kind of way to talk about it, but I struggle to see ETH not being higher than what it is today around the merge. I struggle to see ETH not being over 10,000, to be honest. Obviously not investment advice, but when I think about everything else that's happened, we had staking, 1559, and then the merge. I think about the price points and the price ETH was at those certain periods of time. But we could even go back further, and you can look at what ETH's price was during ICO mania and then after it. So during ICO mania, it went crazy because there was so much demand for ETH as an asset to participate in ICOs. ETH went to $1,400, then back to $80, and then ETH didn't really do much, and neither did most of the crypto market, not even really Bitcoin during the bear market of 2018, 2019. But I think a lot of the reason why ETH was able to catch a really strong bid leading into, 2020 was DeFi was a major catalyst, but also the upcoming upgrades. I don't think that 1559 was really playing into it at that time. There were still people at the end of 2020 that said, oh, 1559's priced in, everyone knows about it, why would it cause ETH to go up in value? So if we kind of pinpoint what price ETH was and kind of where we are and where we were in the Ethereum's roadmap, you kind of had the ICO mania, but then we went back to $80 and then hung around $100 to $200. But then DeFi started getting a natural bid for ETH, right? ETH was used as trustless premium collateral within DeFi. That was a natural kind of bid there. It wasn't artificial. It didn't result in increased sell pressure for ETH like ICOs did, so that was a nice value driver there. Then the drum started beating about staking. Staking was actually around the corner this time. It wasn't like 2017 where people said it was around the corner and then it took another 3 years. It was actually ready. It wasn't obviously the merge, but it was getting the beacon chain live and people could stake their ETH. That, I believe, had a nice effect on ETH's price leading up to it. We got to about $600. And then after that, ETH exploded even more because a lot of ETH got locked up. People were looking at that and being like, wow, okay, if all this ETH gets locked up, then there's not going to be much to buy on the market. I need to get ETH. And then the drum started beating about 1559, for example. And people were like, okay, well, 1559 is actually going to happen. It's a thing. It's been developed. It's on testnet. It's coming very, very soon. And there was a lot of hype around that, even after we had that massive crash in May, right? I actually attribute 1559 in a big way to leading ETH to recovery from there, and ETH outperforming Bitcoin as well. So leading up to it, ETH has gone up since then, and ETH went up leading up to it and continues to kind of grind up over time, right? We're around $4,000 right now. So I think the same dynamic is playing out with the merge. I do think that ETH has a very, very good chance of being over $10,000 at least leading up to the merge, which, as I've said before, should be sometime in Q2. My personal estimation is June, but we'll see if that plays out there. because that is yet again another major catalyst for ETH as an asset because of that triple halvening. It is the biggest catalyst, I believe. It is bigger than staking 1559 and DeFi. ETH uses trustless collateral within DeFi put together. Like, I don't even think those things come close. I really don't think people understand how much of an impact this issuance reduction is going to have, considering it's not just an issuance reduction for people who don't sell their ETH. It's an issuance reduction for miners who do sell their ETH, and they sell it because they have to. They're forced sellers. And I've gone through this so many times on the Refuel before, but I still think so many people are missing this. This is, guys, one of the main reasons I buy ETH all the time, right? Because of the fact that I see it so clearly. For me, it is the most asymmetric bet you could ever make that I've ever seen, really. I mean, maybe there's better bets in the future, but this right now, so few people understand the dynamics. So many more new people are going to come in that don't even know about kind of like Ethereum, right? Don't even know about 1559 and staking and all that good stuff there. And then you have that merge kind of like playing into it. I don't know. That was kind of like my main takeaway from this episode with Bankless here. But there was a lot of other stuff in there, so you should go give it a listen. But the more I think about it, the more I talk about it, it seems insane that people don't realize this, but I don't think they do. I think that the information asymmetry within crypto is so extreme, and then you have everyone outside of crypto who has absolutely no idea what's going on. I would actually wager that the number of people who understand all of ETH's value accrual properties, or at least are aware of them and understand them, is extremely small. I would say less than 1,000 people at this point. And that may seem crazy to you, but there's one thing to be aware of something, and there's another thing to understand it. There are a lot of people who are aware of 1559, but they didn't actually understand how much ETH was going to get burned. I cannot get the memory out of my head of people being surprised on Twitter about how much ETH was being burned when it was literally known. It was known information. There was no guesswork involved. Maybe a little bit of guesswork around how much of a percentage would be burned, but the estimates were about 70 to 80%, and we've kind of varied between that. So given the amount of, I guess like lack of understanding over 1559, I think that the merge is even worse. I just don't think people realize this, but I'm going to leave it at that because I'm getting a bit too ahead of myself there. But I just struggle to see ETH kind of like not be higher. I'm probably much higher than what it is today leading up to the merge. Maybe after the merge, it's like a sell the news event over the short term, because that's just what happens in the markets over the short term. But I believe over the kind of like longer term, it's going to have such a profound impact coupled with 1559, and the narrative of a deflationary ETH is going to be so strong that I think it's going to capture all the attention of all types of investors, not just crypto investors, but investors outside of crypto who are getting their feet wet. If you tell them that this currency is actually truly deflationary because of natural demand to use the network, not just some artificial thing, they're going to understand that eventually, and they're going to buy ETH, I believe. So yeah. Anyway, leaving it at that. On the topic of the merge, Tim Beiko put out a blog post today on the Ethereum Foundation blog about the Kintsugi testnet that you can go join. I mentioned this yesterday. So basically, you can join this public testnet, break it if you want, try to break it, I guess, see how the clients run, see how everything goes. But yeah, really, really awesome to see this as well. I think my internet's working tonight, so I can actually click into this. So yeah, you can see here, basically using it's pretty straightforward. There's a bunch of kind of support and feedback available on the Discord channels and other kind of places here. And then the next steps are detailed here. As you guys know, next steps is obviously to monitor this, make sure it's all stable, and then move on to more testnets from there, and hopefully a mainnet in Q2. So Scott Lewis put out an interesting tweet today where he said, every chain and execution layer that adopts Ethereum standards, EVM, and Web3 will contribute additional value to ETH. And this got me thinking. This is a question that comes up a lot. And it's the question of, do these EVM chains, whether they're layer 2s or other blockchains or side chains, do they contribute value to ETH as an asset? And I think they do. I think it's another one of those things where it's very nuanced. You have to actually understand where the value accrual is coming from for ETH, because you could easily say, okay, well, Avalanche C chain, it's an EVM compatible chain. They have their own native token being AVAX. How does that contribute value to ETH as an asset, right? The Avalanche C chain doesn't settle on ETH. It doesn't kind of like get its security from ETH, and the Avalanche ecosystem obviously wants the AVAX token to do well for the same reason Ethereans want ETH to do well. So where the value accrual comes from is the interconnectedness between these networks. So for example, when you are bridging over to the Avalanche C chain, or when you're bridging back, right, you're from Ethereum, you're burning ETH because you have to pay transaction fees to do this, right? When you're bridging over to the C chain, you have to pay transaction fees on the ETH side. Not just you, like anyone doing the bridging, right? Not just an individual, but entities as well, in order to do that. Now, ETH is also being used in these ecosystems as collateral, right? Maybe not as trustless because it's kind of like when you bridge across, it's kind of like an IOU on these other chains. But essentially, it's being used as collateral, which just increases the demand for ETH. It's being used in liquidity pools on these other EVM chains, right? Then also, if we look at the developer side of things, well, the EVM is just continuing its dominance with network effect. It just, more and more devs are learning Solidity, more and more people are learning the EVM and learning how to use it and play around with it. And the EVM is just becoming a dominant part, or I guess like it already is a dominant part, but it's just remaining a dominant part and continuing to grow of the crypto ecosystem. Now, people will say Solidity and EVM are inferior to other kind of languages and virtual machines, and that may be true from a strictly technical standpoint, but like look at JavaScript in the Web 2 world. JavaScript, for all intents and purposes, and from a lot of developers I've spoken to, is a bad language. It is a bad scripting language. People don't like using it, but because it grew very early on, it got a lot of network effect, everyone uses it now. And yes, there's kind of like different flavors you can get, frameworks that are built on top and all that sort of stuff there, but it's all JavaScript under the hood, and it still persists to this day. I still think, and I think this is going to be the fate of Solidity and the EVM. It's just, I mean, there's too much money involved for starters, right? Where spinning up your own EVM chain is pretty lucrative, and it's really easy to get projects to deploy on you if you're an EVM chain. But I do think that a lot of that value is flowing back to ETH because of the interconnectedness, because of the bridging, because of the fact that it's hilarious. I think most of the TVL on Avalanche's C chain has actually come from Ethereum. So, you know, people have bridged across. Well, they're going to bridge back, right, eventually. Like maybe they don't stay there. Maybe they bridge back to Ethereum because there's opportunities on Ethereum. Or maybe they go to an L2 because there's opportunities there. And then that L2 is paying for Ethereum security and obviously burning ETH by doing so, and value accrues to ETH. So I think that the age of kind of chain maximalism ended a long time ago, but these days it's even more kind of like apparent how just backwards it is to be a kind of like any chain maximalist. And that's why, this is why I kind of get a little bit upset when people call me an ETH maxi, because I'm not. I'm a decentralization maximalist, but I understand that these other things are going to exist. I don't think they're scams. Well, you know, some of them are, but like most of them I don't. I put out a tweet the other day where I said Avalanche, like Solana, Terra, a few other kind of like L1s out there, I don't consider them to be scams or being built in bad faith, but I'm just much more interested in watching the Ethereum vision play out and being a part of that. But the thing is, anything that's EVM to me is actually part of the Ethereum vision, right? It means just Ethereum is everywhere, and especially if it's interconnected, which they all are. Like everything just bridges to everything. Now, I've spoken about before how I think that it's going to be a power law distribution. There is, over the long term, there is definitely going to be big winners and lots of like lots of smaller winners. But right now, the market in particular is trying to figure out who's going to be number 2 to Ethereum. Like, I think the market has priced in Ethereum as number 1, and I mean, not totally priced in, but I feel like the market understands that Ethereum is number 1 and it's not going anywhere. But number 2 is still up for grabs, right? There are so many chains out there that could go for number 2, and this also includes layer 2 chains, guys. It doesn't just include these other kind of like layer 1 blockchains. The market is looking for a number 2 smart contract chain that can be an Arbitrum, an Optimism, a Starknet, a zk Porter, a zkSync, an Avalanche, a Solana, whatever. That can be anything at this point. And that's why you're seeing so much speculation in these kind of like markets on these chains, because there's no given yet. And being number 2 to Ethereum is still a very, very big deal, because as I said before, if Ethereum goes on to be worth $10 trillion, well, would number 2 be worth 10% of Ethereum? Maybe. Well, then it's worth $1 trillion, right? $1 trillion market cap, when a lot of these kind of other networks are $10 to $50 billion in market cap, that's still a very nice growth trajectory there. And some of them are even smaller than that. So you can kind of see how people are kind of speculating here. But yeah, I thought this was a great tweet from Scott. Really got my brain kind of like moving on what the fat ETH thesis looks like going forward. So Polynya put out a funny tweet today where they said, rollup-centric Ethereum is Aztec, Arbitrum, Reddit, Consensus, MasterCard, Boba, Cartesi, Diversify, DYDX, Fuel, Hubble, Immutable X, Loopring, Metis, Nami, Optimism, Polygon Zero, Nightfall, Hermes, and Maiden, Reddit, SoRare, StarkX, StarkNet, zkOpera, zkSync, zkSwap, zkSync, Habitat, W, and then Polynya says, oh, bollocks, ran out of space already. So I see what they did here. They basically listed as many rollups or as they could, and then ran out of space to list more because there's just so many. And I've said this before to you guys, the Ethereum L2 ecosystem is going to absolutely explode, and it's going to, there's going to be forks, there's going to be original ideas, there's going to be kind of like new tech coming to play, but it is going to get crazy. It's going to be like how there was a lot of L1s over the last few years, except it's going to be L2s now because L2s are even simpler or even easier to set up. Now, it's funny because when you go to, when you kind of like look at the tweet that I spoke about the other day from Domothy, they basically said that spinning up an L2 will be as easy as kind of like spinning up a smart contract on Ethereum or a token on Ethereum, I should say. And that's exactly what it's going to be. So expect to see much more or many more L2s come out, especially rollups. And it's just going to be such an incredible ecosystem that's going to develop here. And it's not just going to be things like that are unique, just in crypto. There's also going to be companies like MasterCard, as I went through yesterday, that are going to be getting involved as well. So really, I really like this tweet from Poly now. Just put the point succinctly here that the rollup ecosystem is huge and only going to keep getting bigger. So the New York Times shared a piece today with the caption here, tech executives and engineers are quitting Google, Meta, Amazon, and other large companies for what they say is a once-in-a-generation opportunity with crypto. And then they titled the piece, The New Get-Rich-Faster Job in Silicon Valley, Crypto Startups. So this article, unfortunately, is paywalled for me, so I cannot show you guys it. But I mean, essentially what this is showing is what I've kind of like written about in the newsletter before, the Web3 or Web2, I should say, brain drain, where the smartest people and the most capable people from the Web2 ecosystem that are working for these mega corporates are moving to Web3. And they're doing this because one, it's much more interesting. There's a lot of new problems to solve. Two, it's trying to decentralize things where centralization has become such a problem in today's world. And three, it's incredibly lucrative. If you join one of these early stage crypto projects, and then they issue a token, which comes a lot faster than a company does when it goes to IPO, then you stand to have like a huge payday sooner. The average time to IPO is 7 years. So if you join a tech startup, I mean, chances of that tech startup, like from the early stages, has already got a very a small or low chance of succeeding, but then you also have to wait a long time for it to go public for you to actually recognize that gain, if there is a gain there to be had. Whereas in crypto, there's still kind of like the same chances of the startup failing or not, right? It's still a low chance that it succeeds, but you get liquidity, you get kind of like quote unquote the IPO with a token generation event a lot sooner. And I think that's what a lot of people are interested in, on top of the other things I mentioned. Obviously, there's a lot of really, really cool issues and problems to solve within crypto that haven't even been kind of like worked on in any big way yet. I'm not even just talking about scaling and privacy, but like doing Web3, doing decentralized social media, stuff like that, the right way, where it doesn't end up looking like Web2, is a hard problem. It is not a solved problem. It is something that a lot of smart people need to work on to get us to where we want it to be. So I think that's why a lot of these kind of, like engineers and tech executives are quitting these other companies, because they see that Google, Meta, and Amazon, they're never going to be decentralized. They can't work as decentralized organizations. They have to be centralized. Whereas there are a lot of products within crypto or services within crypto that can potentially be decentralized, or they can create one on their own. They can kind of like change the world that way instead of trying to change a mega company, right? Because Google, Meta, and Amazon, I mean, they're not startups, right? They're just mega companies. You're a cog in the machine when you go to work there. Even as like a top engineer, you're still just a cog. Whereas if you're a top engineer and you join a crypto startup, you're, not only do you get to have like much more of an impact, but you also get much more of a kind of like lucrative opportunity as well, and get to be part of the Web3 revolution, which I think is really cool. So yeah, I know there was a bit of drama on Twitter today about Web3, like Jack, the former CEO of Twitter, kind of was saying that Web3 is all just VC owned or whatever. I mean, the funny thing is he's got a point about certain things, because if you take Web3 to mean like all of crypto, not just the Web3-ish apps of crypto, well, then you could argue that like there's a lot out there that are owned, like there's a, that the tokens are owned by VCs and stuff like that. But I think that's missing the forest for the trees, because really, if that is if that is actually an issue for people, they're not going to use these kind of like apps. They're not going to be able to get a community. Their DAOs aren't going to work, and they'll just kind of like either get forked or fade to obscurity. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how that shakes out there. I don't want to talk too much about Jack's comments. I think he's just kind of like misguided there. I think he'll come around eventually. I mean, hopefully. I mean, I know he's a very big Bitcoiner and he just believes Bitcoin is the thing, but we'll see. We'll see how he goes there. So zkSync put out a tweet today where they said, zkSync is not our technology, it's yours. Our licenses are free and open source. We don't create proprietary tech or gatekeep who can and cannot use our protocol or fork it. We don't have a patent lawyer because we don't need one. Matter Labs aspires to become replaceable. And then they go on to say, it's easy to compromise on decentralization, inclusion, freedom, and network resilience. Some don't value these things as much as others. We always have and always will. I love this open signaling lately from certain teams about these sorts of things, because I know there's been a lot of drama around certain licenses. Obviously, there was the Uniswap v3 kind of license that happened because they didn't want people, that was valid for I think 2 or 3 years, because they didn't want people just forking Uniswap v3 and monetizing it, like what happened with SushiSwap, which I discussed it when it first happened, and I was kind of like, I see the for and against. Then Aave did it recently with their business license. But then some teams like zkSync take a kind of like radical approach where they're like, okay, well, we don't care. Like, we're just going to build the best product ever using this technology. And if someone else wants to come in and fork our technology and build something better, then, go ahead and do that. I get that, but at the same time, what really irks me is that there's open source and then there's the spirit of open source, right? So things being open source, anyone can copy it, anyone can do what they want. Like in crypto, people just fork things, slap a token on it, make some money. But then there's the spirit of open source. And the spirit of open source, it basically says you don't do that, right? It's kind of like the honor code of open source, where don't do that. Don't fork the code and, monetize it in your own way and kind of like try and kind of profit from it, but do fork the code and try to improve it, and then resubmit it back into the open source community and let people kind of like play around with it for free and kind of like work off of your work. So I think within crypto, because you can slap a token on anything, it just becomes really hard not to go for like a business license or some other thing which protects the code that you've created from forking. So I see both sides of the argument. I'm happy to see zkSync doing this. I have no issues with them kind of like saying that everything is, free and open source. But at the same time, this just means that there's going to be plenty of copycats of their code. They're probably going to be short-lived. They're not going to really accrue any network effect. But maybe there is one that accrues a network effect, has a loyal army of supporters, and just continues to scale Ethereum better than zkSync can. Who knows, right? I feel like that with the layer 2 ecosystem, it becomes much harder than with something like a DeFi app, because of the fact that the rollup stuff is pretty specialized and the rollups are basically an entire ecosystem, not just one app, or at least kind of like the generalized ones are. So we'll have to see how that all plays out there. So Brantley from the ENS team put out a tweet today where he said, I don't want this to get lost in the shuffle today, but the DNS domain suffix provider XYZ released a super cool app today. If you have a .eth name, just add .xyz to the end, and it takes you to an automatically generated page for your Ethereum account. E.g. brantley.eth.xyz. So you can see here Brantley's page. It's pretty cool, actually. If I go to this page, it's going to load up for me, I'm pretty sure. Yep, taking a little bit to load here. There we go. Yeah. So you can see this page here. It's Brantley's kind of like automatically generated page with his profile information on here, and with a collection of his NFTs. That is super cool, actually. I really like that. The fact that it's automatically generated makes a lot of sense as well. Because no one, obviously people don't want to just sit here and basically, add everything themselves. But then you also have his other addresses that he has added here. So for those of you who don't know, with ENS, you can add other addresses here and get paid to that. So you can add, he's got a Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Dogecoin address as well as an Ethereum address. So that's really, really cool. But just another really cool feature of ENS here that's been added. I really do like this. I mean, I think I should try mine out. I haven't actually looked at mine yet, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out. Yeah, good to see ENS getting some more kind of love here. And the XYZ domain, I don't think it's been out for that long. I remember it came onto the scene a few years ago and everyone was like, oh, okay, .xyz, that's a bit weird, but whatever. There's like TLDs for everything these days. But yeah, just another really cool feature out of the ENS ecosystem here. All right, so finally, there's a tweet here from Danny Ryan asking, are you a peer-to-peer networking whiz? Do you have a love for hard problems? Are you self-driven and want to change the world? Then join us on the EF Consensus research team. So you can see here that they're looking for a networking engineer for the Consensus research team. It's fully remote. You can work for the Ethereum Foundation here. Now, if you have the skills, definitely do apply. I did mention last time that you could reach out to me and I would try and forward it on to Danny myself. I tried to do that for a couple of people, and then Danny for another role, and then Danny said to me, "We've had like 800 applications. We're probably gonna have to close it there. So the sooner that you apply to these things, the better. Because I'm assuming it's like a first in kind of like best dressed sort of thing. So maybe it's worth monitoring this website here, the ethereum.bamboohr.com, in order to kind of like monitor for Ethereum Foundation jobs, because these are some of the most in kind of like demand jobs out there. I mean, who doesn't want to work for the Ethereum Foundation? If I wasn't doing this, I would probably try to get a gig at the Ethereum Foundation. I would love to work there. It's fully aligned with what obviously I believe in. Obviously, they're fully aligned with Ethereum. So yeah, I can understand why there are hundreds, if not thousands, of applications per role. But yeah, don't let that discourage you. Definitely still apply to this if you're interested in being a networking engineer here. But it's not just the Ethereum Foundation that is hiring. I just want to remind you guys again, literally every single team is hiring. The funny thing is, even if they haven't got any open roles or positions up, and even if they don't, aren't kind of like saying we're hiring, they are hiring. If kind of like you can prove your worth to them and prove that they need you, right, in some kind of way, they will hire you. This has happened plenty of times before because teams are always hiring. It's just a matter of, can you prove to them that they need you and that you can do something that they aren't doing before and that it's adding value to their project? If you can, then you can kind of like create your own role. And this has happened, as I said, plenty of times before. I've seen it play out lots and lots of times in the ecosystem. So yeah, don't just kind of like apply for one job. You can obviously always visit the cryptocurrency jobs website. There's a lot of stuff there, and Daniel, the founder, is also active in our Discord channel, so you can tag him there and ask him questions as well if you want. I'm sure he'll be able to answer those. But yeah, I mean, never been a better time to work in crypto, I believe. I think 2022 is going to be an absolutely amazing year for crypto. Like, I have such a great feeling, guys, especially Q1. I don't know why, but like as I've been moving these last few days, I've just kind of like been thinking through my head. I've been listening to some podcasts and stuff, and been thinking in my head, I'm just like, Q1 and even Q2, just, it's going to be so exciting. We're going to have like L2s continue to grow, right? I'm sure a few of them are going to do tokens, which is going to be interesting. We're going to have the merge stuff continue to progress and hopefully get like an actual window for the merge, like a confidence window. We're going to have things continue to grow, such as DeFi and NFTs, and I think that Q1 in terms of like market performance is going to be much better than what kind of like November and December have been for a number of different reasons. I won't go through them all now. You can listen to the ETH Bull podcast to get a bit, to get a bit of context around that. But yeah, I'm just like very, very confident that Q1 is going to be great for crypto. So I'm very much looking forward to it. We're almost at the end of the year here. What is it? The 21st of December. Only not even 2 weeks left of the year. That's pretty crazy, right? But 2021 has actually been a really good year for crypto too. I mean, as I said, ETH started the year at I think like $600 or $700 or something like that. It went to 4,400, and now is ending the year around 4,000. That's going to be a really nice yearly close. But it's not just ETH that's done that. There's a lot of other things that have kind of taken off. We had the initial traction of L2s, which has been really exciting. A lot of other work, happened. Obviously, 1559 went live and all that sort of stuff. Last year I actually did a full recap of the year on the YouTube channel. If I have time, I'll do it again, recapping 2021 and everything that happened. It just it depends on like if I've finished moving in. Like I've unpacked a lot, but like really, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure many of you have moved before, but this is the first time I've done it. It's taken so much longer than what I thought it would, and I'm like so tired. Maybe you hear it in my voice. I'm recording this at like 11 p.m. my time, so just been at it all day. But yeah, very much still worth it. But anyway, I think I'm rambling a bit there. I'm going to end it that for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.